Well, hello, everyone. Thanks for attending today's webcast and this session on industrial customer programs. I'm Ed Ryder with ACEEE, and I'll be the moderator for this session. We'll start this webcast with a few housekeeping announcements and then quickly move on to our presenters, followed by questions and answers as time allows. First and foremost, I'd like to thank all of our sponsors and allied members for their support of the Energy Efficiency as a Resource Conference and ACEEE. Attendees are in listen-only mode, so please use the chat box on the right-hand side of your screen to ask questions of the presenters. As moderator, I'll be sharing your questions with the presenters following the presentation if time allows. Otherwise, we'll continue the Q&A and the Zoom chat discussion after the session. Watch for the Zoom link to be posted in the chat during the session or download it in the resources section. And please refrain from using the chat for any dialogue other than asking questions. If there is an attendee you would like to connect with, please use the attendees link on the left-hand side column of the platform. All registrants are listed alphabetically. Also on the left-hand side, you can find a resources section. Resources contain a copy of the program in a PDF format and attendee lists for downloading as well. Zoom links for all the chats and discussions, and evaluation form that will ask everyone to complete after they view their last session. Anyone who completes the evaluation and includes their name and a testimonial will receive a $25 discount to attend the 2023 National Conference on Energy Efficiency as a Resource in Philadelphia. All presentations will be available for on-demand viewing within a few days of this engagement. The presenter's PowerPoint can be found on their page in the program participants section. And now I'd like to introduce our distinguished panel of speakers. They are Jason Strano from Eversource, Peter Thurkelson from Lawrence Berkeley National Laboratory, and John Nickel from Leidos. I'll start with the first speaker. Jason Strano is an energy efficiency consultant with Eversource, based out of Berlin, Connecticut office, specializing in the industrial and manufacturing segment. Before Eversource, he worked as a manufacturer's representative in energy and advanced lighting controls and ran lighting and efficiency audits throughout the Northeast. He's a certified energy manager. And with that, Jason, we look forward to your presentation and your topic.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Ed. I appreciate it. And what I'm going to be focusing on today is something that I like to consider outside the box energy efficiency. And the term sounds maybe a little strange to some, but what we're going to be reviewing today is the industrial manufacturing market in Connecticut. And I know that obviously we're dealing with a national audience, and that's exciting because I love talking to people about the differences between regions and some of the specifics that we Northeast have encountered as we've kind of been ahead of the curve. You know, obviously California, Oregon, on the far West Coast have done an outstanding job as well. But it's always interesting to see what other folks throughout the country are going to be working on. Also discuss some of the unconventional ways that we're actually approaching our energy efficiency, as well as some of the more common things we're doing, and how we can possibly work to work a little bit more with our customers and contractors, as well as digging a little bit deeper. So just a quick synopsis on what Connecticut is, as far as we are a very small state, obviously in between New York and Massachusetts, and they both have very different dynamics. Eversource happens to be in Connecticut, Massachusetts, and New Hampshire. So we actually have the pleasure of being able to work between all three of those locations. And even though our programs are a little bit different in each of the states, we have kind of a wealth of knowledge that we're able to work with. So Connecticut, since the colonial times, we've been really huge in the manufacturing segment. There has been a lot of manufacturing as far as aerospace, military, defense options that have been going. And we also have a lot of food-based products that are manufactured in Connecticut. And I've actually had the pleasure of probably go to 100 different facilities throughout my my career in energy efficiency. So it's kind of exciting to see all of the different types of factors that we run into on a daily basis. So, you know, right now, advanced manufacturing is generating nearly 11% of the state's gross product. And, you know, I'm very pleased to be in the industrial and manufacturing side of things, because I will tell you that it has been very busy for us. Square footage of overall manufacturing is really huge. We have a lot of huge manufacturers, and it's exciting, as I mentioned before, to see everything that's going on there. So, and you know, as I mentioned before, you know, Connecticut and the Northeast in general, we've been edge of a lot of these energy efficiency programs. So, one of the things that I'm of is that even though we've all experienced, you know, the COVID-19 situation throughout 20, manufacturing and industrial climate has stopped, and actually in some instances of where I talk to people, it has actually gotten busier, and demands have increased. And you know, some of the challenges that they run into include labor and supply chain issues. However, it has been big. And the other thing is, businesses are looking to save money in any way possible now, and they're trying to be a little bit more inventive. Throughout this entire time period, it has been very, very heavy on the industrial manufacturing side, and I'm seeing a lot of capital investment taking place. So it is a big market that we're working in. The other thing that we have to work on is a lot of the companies are feeling pressure, and this is actually coming from a facilities standpoint. I deal with a number of facilities managers and property managers who are running into issues because they are getting an edict from corporate to curtail carbon footprint and greenhouse gases, and a lot of times they don't know exactly what it is that they're working for, or working toward with that. So, some of the traditional energy efficiency programs that we have energy opportunities, which is a program that I work with on a daily basis, and that's something where contractors and customers are able to come to us. We're able to work with them and go through energy efficiency measures and essentially get them the incentives on that. Our Business Energy Advantage is another program, which is actually designed really more for the smart side of the project. Industrial, the industrial customers fit into that energy. We also have our Small Business Energy Advantage as well. So going into the energy conscious blue is where we work with our customers. If they're going to be doing improvements or purchasing new equipment, that's actually something that we work with. We work with them to make sure that they're purchasing energy efficient equipment, or if they're going to be doing a lighting project, or if they're going to be doing something else that's obviously going to be consuming energy. We want to make sure that we are helping them to purchase the most energy efficient equipment possible. And then energy studies, engineering studies. We work with our customers on a daily basis to really find the best way to utilize what they're doing throughout their processes. And two items that we do on a very regular basis is compressed air and steam trap, which are obviously huge energy users. So when we start getting into some of our more advanced offerings, we start getting into something called an energy usage assessment or energy utilization assessment. It can be one or the other. And a lot of times when I talk to customers and they say, they come to me and they'll say, I need to do something about energy. And I'll oftentimes, I kind of ask them, are you being given an edict from somebody else that we need to reduce energy consumption, we need to reduce greenhouse gases or fossil fuel consumption? And most of the time when I start that conversation, it is yes. And the bottom line is they don't know where to start. So I like to start with something called an energy utilization or energy usage assessment. And what that does is that allows for us to send an engineering team in to really dig deeper into how they're utilizing not only their electric, but their gas or their oil, their propane. We'll figure out what it is that they're utilizing, and we will figure out how we can really get our arms around what's going on there. Once we have that figured out, and once we have some energy conservation measures put together, we may actually move to an SEM, which is a strategic energy management program with that customer. And that's where we really work deeply to start kind of narrowing down each one of those individual items, and how they're utilizing energy, whether it's a compressed air situation, whether they're doing CNC machining, and we can work on something with the environment, whether it be mist collection, or some type of recirculation of the air in the facility, in the compressed air. A lot of times we're doing heat recovery off of that equipment. And the nice part about it is, on a daily basis, I talk to people who literally walk past energy wasting on a daily basis. So it kind of brings it to the forefront. Now, one of the other steps that we work with on is what's called PRIME, which this is actually kind of a mouthful. It says re-engineering for increased manufacturing efficiency. So once we've gone through and figured out how they're utilizing their energy, and then we start actually hammering out the specifics associated with the specifics on each of the individual, and start getting into those energy conservation measures, we like to figure out where in the process we can actually find efficiencies. So, if we start looking at, I just worked with a company building aircraft seats, and they realized that they're moving through these different areas. They found efficiencies in, if this person looks at this and this is moving over here, we can actually find overall efficiencies, and we can figure out how to work in the production side of it. And if you can find 2 or 3 or 4, even sometimes we find 20% efficiencies in the day-to-day operations, it's amazing how much overall improvement we can have in the efficiency. And then ISO 50001 is another key one, which is when we start working with some of the larger companies, they love to see an ISO 50001 qualification, proving that they are a company that's really focused on energy conservation and energy management. So going on the horizon, we're looking for a renewed passion for energy projects. We're working with our customers on Kaizen events, transparency of comprehensive calculations. And when I say comprehensive calculations, that means that we're building multi-level. We're not looking at just lighting projects anymore. We are looking at lighting, compressed air. We're looking at they do plastic injection molding machines. We want to look at that. We want to look at demand control ventilation throughout the facility, and really digging deeper. And then we're also working with some of our express and our midstream rebates. So there'll be mail-in rebates or point of purchase rebates. We're trying to take those projects, and we're trying to continue to parlay those into additional energy conservation measures and improve savings. And then improved communication with our customers is really key. So we're working with our customers on a daily basis, working with our contractors on a daily basis, and really trying to make a huge focus on getting there. So, and on that note, do we have any? Ed, we're going to be answering our questions, I believe, toward the end. But thank you very much.
That's right, Jason. We're going to pick up the questions at the end. So, hey, really appreciate your thoughts, especially those mentions of the small, medium, and large-sized manufacturers, and a tailored approach to each of those. Hopefully, we'll hear some more about that in the chat. So let me introduce our second speaker, who's Peter Thorkelson. Peter is a research scientist and deputy of the Building and Industrial Applications Department at the Lawrence Berkeley National Laboratory. His work focuses on understanding how organizations create and use energy management systems to achieve energy performance, greenhouse gas reductions, and other economic objectives. With that, Peter, we look forward to your comments.
Thank you, Ed, and good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for the introduction, and I'm excited to share the work that my colleagues and I at the Lawrence Berkeley National Laboratory, as well as the U.S. Department of Energy, have been working on in terms of finding ways through management practices to enable organizations and supporting entities such as utilities and consultants to decarbonize manufacturers and other organizations while prioritizing the economic viability of those companies to remain in business in a globally competitive environment. And what we have come to an understanding of and would like to share today is that carbon management requires energy management. Fundamentally, the current administration sees that we have a narrow moment to pursue action. And we at LBNL and the Department of Energy look to create ways to enable, my screen decided to keep going, look for ways to enable companies to widely and deeply decarbonize across the manufacturing sector and other sectors. We know that federal intervention alone will not be able to touch all manufacturers across this country. And so we look for ways to develop tools and resources that can be used on their own by manufacturers, as well as by utilities, consultants, and other stakeholders who can assist and help those companies decarbonize. When we say carbon management requires energy management, we look at it from this perspective, that at the global scale, by and large, carbon dioxide, especially from fossil fuel and industrial processes, is the dominant species that's driving climate change. And when we look at energy as a portion of all US emissions, we see that energy, the direct use of energy, dominates the US, excuse me, I'm not sure why my slides are advancing. We see that energy dominates the greenhouse gas emissions within this country. So in order to manage our nations and our global carbon emissions, we need to manage energy as well. And we see that different targets around decarbonization are being set at the global, national, corporate, and facility level. We see that at the global level, there are targets set around, national targets around a 1.5 degrees C ceiling. We see at national levels agreements in accordance with the Paris Accords. We see the current administration having set a net zero carbon emission by 2050 target. We see different corporations using science-based targets, net zero and zero net carbon targets. And we see some of those trickle down or be set at the facility and site level based upon regulatory or corporate directives or science-based targets set at individual levels. And we see a wide range of reporting mechanisms, Carbon Disclosure Project and others that have clear methods of demonstrating carbon savings or carbon emissions that can be conformed to demonstrate achievement of different targets. So you know where you have to go. You have a target. You may even have a reporting requirement and probably have a deadline to do so. But many organizations, many manufacturers are left with the question of what are they going to do? Who are they going to involve? Where are they going to focus activities? How long will it take? And how do they have confidence that their approach will work? And sometimes it's like staring at a big mountain. You know you have to get up to the top. You know you have to get there quickly, but you're not quite sure what the best route to go is. And in terms of decarbonization, in many ways, there hasn't been no trailblazer for deep decarbonization at some types of facilities. And you may be starting out your venture on your own, initially on your own. There are many different components within a manufacturer and other organizations that need to be assessed and addressed to enable deep decarbonization, transportation, equipment, processes, and process modifications, fuel switching, energy efficiency, staff competence and engagement, data tracking and reporting, and then what objectives and targets is this organization trying to meet. These have definitely a technical and a business management component to them, which intersects to see that we're not just talking about energy efficiency alone. There's opportunities for things like demand response, on-site generation, time of use to be considered as well when prioritizing decarbonization. This in turn makes us think back that we need a process, we need a system, we need some type of management system to address our decarbonization objectives. Energy management systems are defined in a whole number of ways, but generally involve engaging staff from top to bottom, management, safety management, and health management, as well as the staff that are actually using energy on a day-in, day-out basis, to engage in a system or process, here showing us a plan, do, check, act cycle that has structure and clear process to it that engages both business management practices as well as technical energy engineering thought and consideration. The outcome of this should be a verifiable process, an audit, if you were interested in such a third-party verification, that everyone can look at and say, yes, we are managing energy, we are managing to our objectives, and we're doing so in a way that is holistic and intelligent for our organization. The ISO 50001 business practice is a framework for continual improvement of energy performance. It is this energy management system defined by a global standard that was developed by over 56 countries with US leadership. It is a flexible roadmap. It's to be inclusive and approachable by different types of organizations of all different sizes and resources. It's used by over 42 sites today. It's data-driven, it's flexible, and we know from research that it helps organizations of all kinds and sizes achieve persistent energy and cost savings over the long term. We've also seen that 50001 saves energy, builds resilience, drives decarbonization, and it demonstrates action, appearance, the public assurance to people outside of the organization and inside of an organization implementing ISO 50001 that action is being taken and that there is a relative level of assurance that targets will be met. We have lots of data and evidence over the past decade or so that supports the idea that those facilities that are committed to ISO 50001 save energy and do so in a persistent fashion. What we've recently done is been able to take data from over 90 facilities over a greater than a decade period and analyze those data year on year to examine what level of savings they achieve. We see from these data that in year one, facilities on average save a touch over 4% of their annual energy consumption, with a large variation in achievement, some achieving more than 10% reduction in energy consumption. And that over time, as you push out more than a decade, while the variation in level of savings decreases, there is year on year continual improvement, continual energy reduction. The overall magnitude of this average drops slightly, but still, we're seeing that these facilities, on average, are saving over 3% energy a decade after they've begun their ISO 50001 energy management journey. This far exceeds the annual energy outlook average of 0.5% per year for manufacturers. DOE supports the uptake of ISO 50001 through software tools, recognition programs, workforce training and accreditation, and measurement and verification protocols, and as well as research to demonstrate the value and challenges of such an approach. I specifically want to highlight the 50001 Ready Navigator. It's an online tool that provides simple step-by-step guidance to implementation of ISO 50001. It's developed to provide free training information to the market with actionable steps to implementing such a business practice. There is DOE recognition available, but there is no third-party certification cost or, quite frankly, fear of external validation. And there's a suite of software to support this. A large number of companies have engaged with the Navigator, and one in particular has pointed out that 50001 Ready is critical for managing operations and positioning them to meet their net zero 2050 goals. Currently, we're looking at the 50001 Ready materials and adapting it to prioritize decarbonization objectives. We're anchoring these around the Greenhouse Gas Protocol, US EPA documents, as well as some other ISO standards. And we're using stakeholder input to drive this to ensure that it's meaningful for manufacturers across the country. From recent research conducted on behalf of the North America SEM Collaborative with ACEEE, we see that SEM programs across the country identify that they are interested in understanding if customers' energy management activities that they introduce persist. We also see that a large number of these are using different management frameworks, including a growing number that are using ISO 50001 or 50001 Ready as the basis of their programs. We see this in the RFP language coming out of NYSERDA, from a program in Alberta that focused on decarbonization, and within the California Industrial Strategic Energy Management Program as well, amongst many others. DOE has a program of DOE 50001 Ready partners. These partners have signed an agreement with DOE that allows them to adapt the DOE resources to best serve their customers. You'll see a smattering of both utilities, program benefit administrators, and contract implementers alike, who are now leveraging, co-branding, and adapting the 50001 Ready resources to provide value to different utility programs and the energy end users they serve. And we invite everyone to investigate the 50001 resources, provide input about how carbon can be adapted to energy management through 50001, and potentially become a partner and adapt the materials that are provided to your constituents and your customers. Thank you for your time today. I know we had to go quickly through these materials. I'm happy to take questions at the end of this session or even afterwards and continue the conversation. Thank you.
Okay, hey, thanks, Peter. You covered a lot of material in a fair amount of a short amount of time there, but certainly appreciate you highlighting the performance of 4 to 10% impact. That's much greater than the 0.5%, which is typical. And glad to hear that it continues over time as well. Um, so I just want to remind the participants, the audience, that if you have questions, go ahead and put those into the chat, and we'll catch those after John's presentation. So let me introduce John at this point. John from Leidos has more than 35 years of experience in energy engineering and energy program management. He specializes in the design and implementation of programs for the industrial sector. Since 2014, he has innovated and evolved the design and implementation of strategic energy management programs. So with John, we look forward to your comments.
All right, thanks, Ed, and I also want to thank ACEEE for the opportunity to present today. The topic I'm going to talk about is really looking at program cost effectiveness and looking at mastering the industrial market in particular to try to get that cost effectiveness as best as we all can. First of all, I guess I want to give you my perspective so that you use that in judging what to make of the next few slides here and information I'm about to give you. I have been involved with energy management advising for industrial customers since 1988. Program manager for industrial energy efficiency programs since 2001, and helped create and train with the tool that we've developed called Practical Energy Management for industrial customers for about 10 years, and have designed and implemented 12 different types of industrial programs across the country over the years. And we also created and deployed energy best practice guidebooks for 6 industrial subsectors: pulp and paper, metal casting, food processing, plastics, printing, and water, wastewater. And also I'm very proud to say that our programs have received awards from ACEEE for exemplary programs. So with that as a context, I want to make the statement that industrial program cost effectiveness is very high. I mean, well-designed and implemented industrial programs, in my experience, are 40 to 120%, depending on the comparison, more cost-effective than commercial programs alone. So there's a lot to be gained by really digging in with industrial customers and making energy efficiency happen with them. Other benefits besides that high cost effectiveness is from that cost effectiveness, more funds are then available to use for harder to reach customers or to reach those lower income customers. Also, a high industrial customer satisfaction can be very important to utilities who are operating programs. And it's also very important to reduce the potential for industrial customers to opt out of the programs and have their associations push for that. Another key aspect is, by engaging industrial customers in energy efficiency, you can really get at, the issues of carbon reduction, renewables, and electrification, through, again, that process of looking at and working with industrial customers on energy efficiency. Some of the unique industrial sector program challenges, there's really a high diversity of different types of energy using equipment and systems, especially when you compare it to sort of the commercial market. Complex energy using systems along with that, typically industrial customers have highly technical program staff. And high diversity of business types and products and markets. It's all over the place, right, in terms of what's being made, profit margins, and business cycles and things like that. And they also have, high technical abilities, making it more challenging to influence those decisions in terms of the complexity of the projects themselves, and extremely limited staff. There's more and more they're cut to the bone, and you need to provide some, very quick and cost-effective ways for them to engage with the program. So now I'm going to go into, some of my experience in terms of proven industrial program solutions. I guess, again, I'm advocating focusing in on industrial, using an industrial program to, not a C&I program, but an industrial program to really focus in on that industrial market because of their unique needs that I just mentioned. First of all, experienced industrial energy advisors. you really, the challenge there is, as I mentioned, short on staff time, and you really need to have that experienced industrial energy advisor to help them be a part of their team and develop that trust. And so that's a very key aspect of a good industrial program, is having that experienced energy advisors with a high level of technical expertise in industrial equipment and in the industrial business itself, so that they can speak the language that the customer needs to hear. Another one is targeting key industrial subsectors. There's all sorts of different types of industrial markets out there, each of them with their unique challenges and opportunities. So you really have to sort of segment those industrial markets to dig in and work with those key subsectors like pulp and paper, for instance, to best meet the needs and, again, the unique aspects of those subsectors, and also to engage. And again, this has been, I think, a key aspect of success of programs, is engaging the associations around those subsectors, like the pulp and paper industry or metal casting industry, that really looks to connect, and you can use that to connect with the customers in a trusting way. Another aspect, element of a good industrial program is subject matter experts. Besides your experienced industrial energy advisors, bringing in very key folks who know for instance, the pulp and paper industry or the metal casting industry and the processes that go on there. They probably have spent 30 years in those kind of facilities. And so they really have a deep understanding of what is needed for the business of those customers, and then what can be done to modify the processes, the core processes that typically have most of the energy use of that industry. Very key to building trust. As mentioned earlier about strategic energy management, I think that's a very key thing. Most industrial facilities and companies do not have a systematic approach to doing energy or looking at energy and managing energy. So bringing that in as a program is really critical to help them understand how best to manage the energy within their context, and really provides the opportunity to look at both capital projects and the operational side, where you can make some tweaks to operational standard operating procedures, things like that, to really impact energy efficiency. Another key thing along sort of with that is, supporting ISO 50001 efforts. Use a 50001 and DOE's 50001 Ready program to really look at how the customer is doing relative to that gold standard with SEM, and look what gaps they have and help them understand that. Developing a program participation benefits. This is a sort of, again, a side thing, which is, most industrial customers are not aware of the full potential value of a good industrial program. Therefore, they tend to maybe support opt-out options. Well, again, if we can market as a program the value of what we're bringing to them in all of the things we're talking about here of a good program, they can support that and understand the value, and then, again, support not opting out. Low cost, quick payback incentives. The challenge there is industrial customers are so short-staffed that they walk by even quick payback types of things are ignored. So offering a very specific, incentive for stalled or low cost, quick payback improvements to motivate customers and solve these projects is a very useful thing to do. These type of projects can also build sort of a momentum and program trust. Outreach to industrial trade allies. Again, without the trade allies, a lot of these capital projects don't get done. So you really need to find out who in the market is the key trade allies who work with industries, and engage them to show them how the program can really bring their products and services to bear and impact the customer. And so that they're sort of where the tire hits the road in terms of getting projects done. Another key aspect that we've done is called staffing grants. Again, this gets at the limited customer staff time, is providing a grant to overcome that limited staff time, so they can hire or assign staff to oversee projects and don't have to choose between energy projects and some other part of their business. And the last few ones here, industrial retro commissioning. Again, like we talked about before, many operational low-cost projects are ignored by the staff, but retro commissioning can pull that together, just like with commercial buildings, to really make sure their systems are optimized. EMIS, supporting that energy management information system, is another key aspect and a step forward in really bringing data to manage their energy, and for companies to understand that. A lot of times they don't have the time or expertise to really dig into that. So that can really have a big impact in terms of how they manage energy going forward. And overall, we need program flexibility. One size does not fit all. That's why it's really important that the industrial program is sort of set aside from commercial type of program. So in conclusion, well-designed industrial programs can be very cost-effective, can help the whole portfolio do better across the board. And it's essential to bring the program value to effectively impact industrial customers and capture those significant energy savings. Having a separate program, a well-designed industrial program, can be very cost-effective and supports areas such as low-income programs. Industrial opt-out hurts the entire program, sort of goes along with that. And there are proven elements to a well-designed industrial program. So you just need to look at those. They're even more important with the urgent need for carbon reduction, renewable options, industrial process carbon alternatives, i.e. electrification, with renewable sources, so that we can all do a better job in terms of global climate change. So with that, I'll turn it back over to you, Ed.
Okay, thanks, John. That was excellent. Just remind folks that if you have some questions, go ahead and pop those into the chat. We've got one question there in the chat, and I've got a couple that I can add as well. But if you have additional questions, go ahead and put those into the chat, and I'll introduce those. So let me start with the first question that's there in the chat, and then I'll go to a couple that I have. So here's a question from Ross, and that is, are the prime efficiency measures related to production processes, labor savings, throughput, lead time reduction, for example, not just energy savings alone? Anyone want to start on that one?
Sure, I can definitely speak to that. Yeah, as a matter of fact, that's one of the unique parts of it, is that the prime programs, they actually focus on things that are other than actual energy. So when you're able to make a process, the example that I originally had was, I was working with a company that built aircraft seats, and one of the line that we specifically worked on was building some of the prototypes and some of the first run equipment that needs to go out to customers. And that's actually a very labor intensive process because they're trying to build that first unit. They found out that there was a number of pieces that were being reworked. There were little mistakes that would have to go back and forth. And they actually found that they were able to, I believe it was actually 19 or 20% overall efficiency they were able to find in that procedure there. So not only are we looking to make customers better in regards to their overall energy usage, we want to have them be more efficient and more effective in what they're doing on a day-to-day basis. So, a lot of people don't consider that there's actually overall efficiencies to be had in adding lighting controls to a facility. If you can make your occupants happier, if you give them capability of dimming in their specific area, that can actually make them happier, make them more comfortable at work, and they're going to overall be more productive. So that's the type of thing that we're looking for, especially in that outside the box realm.
Jason, thanks for jumping in on that question. Anyone else want to comment on that?
Well, I'll just say, I think in a parallel path, I guess the subject matter experts, I guess, that we bring in, we look nationally for those within a certain industry. I think that can be applied, and they are applied not only to sort of existing facilities, but when people are looking at building new facilities, similar to what Jason was describing, to help bring that in. Yeah, so it's a similar process, I think.
Okay, yeah, thanks, John. One of the other comments, I guess, that's in the notes there is the challenge associated with the politics of employment. And John, you had mentioned that companies are squeezed on employment at this point. So with that, as you bring in folks from the outside, advisors and whatnot, that can be a route to help companies, even though they're squeezed on employees, to meet some of these goals that are coming down from senior management. Any additional comments that you want to use to express the squeeze on employees, especially in the COVID environment?
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's always been bad within the industrial. I mean, it's bad in a lot of businesses, but particularly industrial market in terms of the squeeze of low staffing. It's been that way for many, many years. But with COVID, obviously, it's been even exacerbated even more, harder to find employees and replace employees and things like that. It's one aspect of that staffing grant that you can at least use that as a program to help them have the money, right, to go out and reach out and hire folks. Now, finding those folks is still going to be the challenge. And that's, again, where some of our SMEs and energy advisors can obviously be a part of their team, as opposed to them hiring, folks like that. But
I think that connects as well with Peter's comments relative to the performance of energy management systems. The fact that he noted, an improvement of 4 to 10%. And the fact that it continues over time is something that should definitely have a light shined on it at this point, that should help in the justification of these projects. But I guess let me ask you a question, Peter, as you talk to industrials about that kind of information. Does that move the needle in their ability to respond and pick up energy management across the spectrum of different kinds of programs?
For the companies themselves, or as utility programs when they look at it?
Both, whichever one you want to talk about.
Yeah, and I want to be real clear, and I hopefully said it the right way in the session, that we're not saying that if you do ISO 50001, you will achieve those results. But what we see is, maybe to kind of what John was alluding to, that when companies take energy management seriously and understand that they have a lot of agency to do something in the space, and it's not something that just happens to them, or they just pay a cost for energy and that's the end of it. When they understand, in the same way that they manage a whole lot of other things already, they can manage energy, they can see very significant and persistent savings. And of course, every facility is different, every industry there is different. I would not expect to see anywhere near those types of levels from a blast furnace, but for, on average, the masses of manufacturing facilities, you can see very significant savings. And then most importantly, the persistence of them. And we're working to tease out exactly the attribution of it, and that's a squishy word here, of how much of that is having a very well-defined process of managing energy versus other activities that may have resulted in that type of persistence of energy savings, and not just persistence, but continual improvement of energy savings. We do have a lot of evidence and a lot of data points showing staffing turnovers not resulting in backsliding, but staffing turnovers resulting in people picking up the existing management practices, becoming more educated about them and becoming experts, and then building on success. And I think it's one of the things that's many utility programs are starting to examine is, what is their long-term role in relationship to manufacturing customers in particular? Are they looking to transform the customer? Well, let's put market transformation aside, but just talk about transforming a customer through empowering them with business practices if that customer is interested, and then staying engaged and using that as a long-term customer engagement vehicle, as well as an opportunity to introduce more advanced and new energy savings opportunities. I think it's a question that a lot of programs are starting to identify as an opportunity by investing in the company's own management practices. And both Jason and John referred to that in the programs that they're involved with as well.
Oh, okay. One of the other things that folks will say about the industrial sector is that it's complex and it's heterogeneous. very different across various sectors. Jason, in particular, you had noted perhaps different approaches for different components of the industrial sector. You both got small, medium, and large, as well as the approach of perhaps different segments, pulp and paper, iron and steel, chemicals, et cetera. Can you talk to us about the variation perhaps in how you approach things? And then perhaps John will have some comments on that as well as Peter.
Sure, that's actually a very interesting question, because one of the things that I love about my job is that every day I'm getting to work in different industries. So, you know, working in pulp and, you know, we have some paper manufacturing, we have some food manufacturing, we have, you know, I actually work with a lot of plating companies. There's a lot of CNC. There's a lot of, you know, overall manufacturing. There's aerospace, and literally you have the full gamut. And each of those customers has different needs. What I like to do first off, when I'm talking to a customer, and let's just say that I'm not familiar with the industry that they're in, I like to say, hey, look, can we have a 15-20 minute conversation about how it is that you're using your facility? What is it that you're doing there? And as soon as I can start getting a little bit more information about what it is that they do at that factory, I start asking them some questions. It sounds as though you may have a boiler. Are you using steam there? Are you using, you know, it sounds like you might be using hydraulics in this process. And then once we start figuring out exactly what it is that they're doing there, and by no means can I be an expert at, you know, at all of these places. I'm sure, you know, John has been you know, I think you said you have over 30 years of experience, so you've seen all different types of things. So every time you go into one of these factories, it seems like there's always something new there. So you know, I try to get on the same playing field with the customers and make sure that I have an understanding of where it is that their pain points can be coming from. And like you said, we have programs that range everything from, you know, our SBEA program, which is a Small Business Energy Advantage program. You know, that's where, you know, we can work with a small automotive garage that may have, you know, some issues, or there might be convenience stores that would fit into that bucket. And then you know, we work all the way through, you know, your larger manufacturing into, you know, your huge manufacturing companies. So each one of those has their own needs and their own requirements, and I think it's important for us as the utility to be sensitive to that and to really listen and keep our ears open to figure out what it is that we can do for them.
John, any additional comments there?
Well, yeah, just to add on to that, I think it's, as Jason, you're saying, you know, very important to listen to their specific needs and their issues, right, that go beyond maybe just the energy side, right? It is very helpful to have somebody who has lived that, you know, life in terms of, you know, industrial life as a part of that, you know, an energy advisor or a SME, a subject matter expert, to really, because these guys, and I'm sure you guys understand this, you know, you start talking to them, and if you understand and you can use their same language, they're gonna pick up and be much more trusting, and they're very quick to either trust you or not trust you. And so it is critical to really listen to them and to be cognizant of the kind of needs that they do have, and that takes a little time and experience. But yeah, I mean, I think I guess I just wanted to add that.
Peter, any builds?
There's a lot of great comments there, and it's about approaching them where they are, and even in the scheme of ISO 50001 and energy management as a business practice, it's not something you want to arbitrarily thrust on everyone or first approach people with. It can be a very scary and overwhelming concept, and one that's in its application is new to an organization, but one when it's broken down in relationship to production or safety or other factors of a manufacturer are actually very recognizable and approachable, starting with what matters to them. You know, moving away from the kind of centric thinking of energy benefits and non-energy benefits, and just thinking about what are the benefits to this organization. Mm-hmm. And if you serve the customer well, you will reap the rewards regardless, because anything most anything we do results in some type of improvement in savings if you prioritize the customer. They're going to build that trust. John's absolutely right about that. It's the relationship that matters. If they don't trust you, they're not going to let you step foot on their facility and you're getting nowhere. So approach them from where they are. And then we look at things like ISO 50001 as a roadmap, not itself the objective. And so if you can leverage parts of it, if you can show them that, hey, you just want to focus on these components today, maybe someday, maybe never, you'll want to flesh this out. Maybe this makes you more attractive to a customer. Maybe your corporate owners in Europe are going to push this on you and you're prepared. There's lots of conversations to be had, but it all starts with the objectives of the customer.
And if I can piggyback on what he was saying, or what both John and Peter have said, one of the things that we've been able to do as of 2021 is our programs have allowed for us to build in phases. So we will look at a project and say, okay, we understand that this is going to be a capital intensive piece here. So if a company has goals of replacing their HVAC system, we understand that that's going to be something that's a very labor and cost prohibitive thing to do. So if we can work with the customers and build it this is going to be a fall of 2021, and then we're going to move into 2022 and then 23. I also happen to work on a lot of wastewater treatment plants and water treatment plants in Connecticut. And that's one of those things where we have to be understanding that these are municipalities oftentimes or private companies, and these are very long-term goals that they have to work through. So, making sure that you're understanding what the customer is looking for, how can we work with them, as opposed to just trying to fit everything inside of these guidelines. Let's figure out what it's going to look like for 2021, 22, 23, and this is how we can work these programs to better come out.
Okay, I'll encourage folks to add any other questions there to the chat, but I've got one other question that kind of pops up, Jason, from your comments. Industrial companies are setting science-based targets, and as Peter noted, that fits in with the other levels of targets and goals that are being set at the national, at the international level. Folks want to go fast. They want to have big impact. And so Jason, you and Peter, I think have both touched on the element of timing. So how can you describe to folks the entire portfolio of perhaps needed actions where an energy management program fits in, and other elements to show you can make progress in the near term, you can plan for progress in the midterm, and you can also plan for the things that are needed, the capabilities that need to be developed, et cetera, for the longer term. Okay, who wants to go first?
I can definitely jump in if you would like, Ed.
Yeah.
One of the things, a lot of times the conversations, I will tell you, the industry that we work in is very it's based on relationships, as John said, and you have to build that trust with customers and with contractors, because a lot of times they will have one thing in mind. A lot of my projects start out with I have to replace a 100 horsepower compressor, and then from there we're able to actually continue parlaying into other things that are going to work for them. And there may be something that's 2 years down the road where they're thinking, oh, well, we're going to contemplate a roof, and maybe with that roof we can do additional insulation, and maybe we can. I think a lot of it starts with having that conversation, having the relationship, and then working with them. And really, there's a partnership that develops. And a lot of times I will have a project started with a customer, and we will, as I mentioned before, just continue with phases, and we can keep that project open and just keep on going and building it into a longer term goal. So yes, a compressor project, a 100 horsepower compressor project may have some savings up front, which is great, and we love that. But then developing that relationship and figuring out how it is that we can make an improvement further on down the road with that same customer. I'm working on a large HVAC project right now, and it's going to be a multi-phased project, and we have a 2021 piece and a 22 piece, but they're also building a 40,000 square foot addition to that space. So how can I help them build that 40,000 square foot addition and also be as efficient with, when it comes to lighting and with the HVAC and with all of those pieces, and having that come full circle. Because I understand, as people become more successful, there's going to be more energy usage at that facility, which, it's kind of a double-edged sword. But we want to make sure that they're making intelligent decisions in their overall improvements.
Super. I'll note that the link for the Zoom chat session has been provided there in the comment section in the chat. So pick that up so that we can continue this conversation. But anyone else want to build on the conversation there from Jason's comments?
I'm good.
One of the other topics that I'll just throw out there, and I think, Jason, you had mentioned this, and that is the energy assessments and the bringing in of contractors. And as folks look at the fact that, well, some of the people, as John had mentioned, that were the experts have retired and left. And some of the folks that, people would look for are no longer there. How do you see building the capabilities for people to make these types of decisions, bringing in the subject matter experts, as John mentioned, or Jason, perhaps third parties? Where do you see that fitting into this equation?
Well, that is an important question. How to build the market. I mean, we're going to need a lot of people if we're going to hit this carbon reduction, on the energy side. And so, there's obviously the industrial assessment centers that are doing those kind of trainings at the college level. And, I think we've looked at and have done over the years internships with programs where we're helping, companies hire interns to do energy, work, energy efficiency support. So I think that's an element that we can and should continue to do. But yeah, it's interesting because I don't know who's necessarily in the driver's seat of being really promoting that for the country of getting this resource, human resource, I guess, built up so that we can accomplish what we're trying to accomplish. I guess Peter, I look to you to make that happen.
Well, the driver's seat is a scary terminology in this context. The Department of Energy is extremely focused on workforce, both in terms of manufacturing in the more traditional people who are going to go work in that sector, period, or regardless of energy efficiency and decarbonization, but also explicitly around decarbonizing industry and making it more competitive globally. DOE has a very laser-like focus on decarbonization, workforce education, and equity and justice. And so manufacturing is a challenge with regards to workforce, as you're pointing out, John. And DOE recognizes why do they care about workforces, because the federal government can't touch everybody. They can't push everything. There's over 200,000 manufacturing facilities in this country, and as large as the Advanced Manufacturing Office budget is, it's insignificant to the need of human capital, physical capital, and just general education and information that needs to be transferred. And so you're left with a situation where the department really wants to empower others to become those channels to increasing adoption of decarbonization practices and technologies. So I see a lot of programs like the Industry Technology Validation Program, the Technology in Residence Program, and even the 50,001 activities with DOE 50,001 partners like Leidos and Focus on Energy in Wisconsin, as ways of bringing information to others so they can bring those message to a wider audience. But there is a real challenge, because while you can bring up and educate individuals in these contexts, someone's going to have to pay their salary moving forward. and someone's going to have to demand their services, and it's not going to be publicly funded at the mass scale.
Well, Peter, that was a great response to wrap up with. So let me thank our speakers for their presentations, their comments, and attendees for participating in today's webcast. Again, if you'd like to continue exploring these topics presented today, please follow us to the Zoom chat room. And again, the Zoom link is there on the screen as well as in the chat. So pick that up and join us shortly over there in the chat. Again, thanks, and I look forward to seeing you on more conversations for the EER meeting.
Okay.